I'm Medha Wilson. I'm the group CEO of Microloan Foundation. Microloan Foundation is a charity that's based in the UK. I work here in the London office. And what we do is through our subsidiaries that are in sub-Saharan Africa, primarily in 3 southern African countries, Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, we serve some of the most excluded and remote regions in these countries by providing loans to women, many of whom are illiterate. Many of them do not have access to any sort of finance. And we help them by providing them with loans to either start or expand a business. And we always complement this with additional skills training in the form of financial literacy and business skills. So we work in 3 geographies at the moment. We're also quite ambitious in our plans. We're looking to expand to other countries in the future. But that's what we do at Microloan Foundation. I joined Microloan Foundation 5 years ago, in 2018, though it just feels like yesterday. So during this time, we've just helped build sustainable entities in each of these countries. We've made them self-sufficient, so the income that they're generating covers their costs. And we're really happy to report that all 3 of our subsidiaries are able to do that. And I focus on the strategy of the group, both in the UK and in sub-Saharan Africa.
Well, what an absolutely fantastic organization. I know you've made a huge difference, and we're going to get to that. But I also want to know a little bit more about you. Can you tell me where you come from and tell me a little bit of the journey that led you to Microloan Foundation?
So I'm originally from India. I grew up in India in a city called Bangalore, in southern India. I spent 18 years of my life there and then decided I wanted to study economics, and I applied to the UK to do my undergraduate studies. And I moved to the UK. I did my undergrad here in London, and then I got a job in finance. I qualified as a chartered accountant in London, and then it sort of got me thinking about what I should be doing next. A lot of people move into industry, a lot of people continue. And I just came across this book by Professor Muhammad Yunus, a pioneer in microfinance. He started this concept in Bangladesh, very well known in this world. He'd written this book called The Banker to the Poor. I found it such a powerful read, and I just took to it immediately. I just love the concept of microfinance, where you are providing not handouts to women, but you're providing them a loan so that they can live their lives with dignity. You're giving them a hand up, sort of enabling them to build their businesses, grow their businesses, and reinvest it back, not just for themselves, but for their families and wider communities. And I just thought that was such a powerful concept. So I did a little bit of research online, and I found a volunteer program, where you could go in as a consultant and just gain some experience on the ground, but also bring the skills that you've gained outside of this area into microfinance. And so I chose this little village in Uganda to do this. I took the plunge. I quit my job here in London, which is well paying. I had no other guaranteed employment at the other end. But when I look back, I think that was the best decision I ever made, because it was such a rewarding experience. I spent 12 weeks on the ground in Uganda and absolutely loved it. But also, it really gave me an opportunity to experience it firsthand. And the results were so tangible. I mean, it was so amazing to see the impact that a loan can have on a person's life, a person who's never had an access to a bank or formal financial institutions, things that we take for granted here in the Western world. So that that experience really shaped my career path. And I've never looked back, like I said earlier, and I still continue to do it because I absolutely love it. And it's been such a rewarding career. So over time, I've gained experience in Sub-Saharan Africa and different parts of Sub-Saharan Africa and Asia and Southeast Asia. And I still continue to work in Sub-Saharan Africa because it is a continent that has so much opportunity and potential.
Yeah, truly, and that's amazing. It's an amazing story. It's one that I also share with you of when you get to a point where you're like, what other kind of difference can I be making in the world? So it's so awesome to hear that story. And as you know, tomorrow is International Women's Day. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Inspire Inclusion. When we inspire others to understand and value women's inclusion, we forge a better world. I know the work that you do obviously speaks to that, and I'm wondering if you can give us your take on how Microloan Foundation is making important progress in this area of inclusion.
One of Microloan Foundation's core mandates is, our mission is very closely aligned to achieving at least 3 core United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or UNSDG goals for short, which are no poverty, zero hunger, and gender equality. So we believe at Microloan that it is through the strategic focus on women that we can achieve the most impact, because there's plenty of data to support that. Out of 1.3 billion people living in poverty in the world today, 70% of those people are women. And women, you'll find the data also says that women perform a greater proportion of the work, they work longer hours, but despite that, their earnings remain only 50 to 75% of the men's earnings. And especially in the countries we work in, women form a large part of the informal sector. So they don't, they're not gained in formal employment. They often enter this informal sector through micro enterprises, and you'll find that majority of those micro enterprises do not have access to finance. So if we talk about inclusivity, we at Microloan believe that by focusing on areas where poverty is the highest and where the need is the most, we can make the most significant impact. And we continue to do that. We stay very true to our mission because in the regions that Microloan operate, there are very few others. We're going to very remote, underserved regions in each of these countries where we operate, where there's no other alternative than, say, a money lender or friends and family for people to access finance. So we're providing that really a valuable service, we believe, to people to really, climb up that ladder. And these women have been, in intergenerational poverty. So when you look at the data to say how many of our women clients are progressing out of poverty after 1 or 2 years of being with Microloan, I think the statistics speak for themselves. At least 17% are able to do that in 1 year. And that's pretty remarkable, just given that they've been in poverty for generations. So we really believe the access to finance is a really empowering tool for women. And it's that first step to get them out of poverty. But we also see other positive impacts of lending to women, because we see that they are better borrowers than men. They repay, their repayment rates are much higher than what a typical male would have. But they're also more likely to invest back into their family and community. So you do see better statistics in terms of their children being able to go to school, family having better access to healthcare, achieving year-round food security, etc. So by tackling inclusivity of women, we believe it actually ensures inclusivity for everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and one of the videos that you just ran on your website about a woman that you helped, I remember her son is now part of working for her, and it made me proud on a different level, because it's showing that women can play those leadership roles. Women can change how their world is produced around them. And I think, your organization and leadership has definitely helped inspire that. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you for that beautiful answer. And on top of it being International Women's Day, we also have a month that is Women's History Month. And this is really dedicated to reflecting on often overlooked contributions of women in history, but also the importance of sharing achievements of women leaders and change makers, which I absolutely consider you a leader and a change maker. You just highlighted so beautifully the change that you are creating. And it's a celebration of contributions to culture and history and society. So we wanted to highlight you because through Microloan Foundation, but also through the passion that you mentioned, the whole reason that you changed your trajectory. Can you give us some of the examples of how you've supported this thought of being a change maker, and maybe even some authentic stories of women that you've helped and how you've truly changed their lives?
One of the things, like I said earlier, that really struck me about the power of microfinance, if done correctly, is that it has the ability to transform not just one life, multiple lives. It's not just one life, but multiple lives. So as we've seen, it has a very ripple effect. When you support a woman, it supports her children, supports her husband, supports the wider community. So I that was what inspired me to make this move. It's because the results felt so tangible. I mean, it was so palpable for me, and I could see that firsthand. And it is a very fulfilling job at the end of the day. Even though I'm sat here in London, when I go out go out to our operations in sub-Saharan Africa, I'll always undertake a visit to our communities because it brings you back to why you do what you do. And I think that's what really inspires me on a daily basis. And I think that's what drives me to be a change maker, if if you want to call me that. And I think that's how we get our teams pumped up and say, this is what we're doing. And everybody really, really gets drawn to the mission and the cause that we're supporting and the change that we're making on a daily basis. Because there comes, there are a lot of dark days. We work in some incredibly difficult markets. I mean, we're hit by all kinds of external shocks, as you might be aware. Like we were in Malawi, for example, you have a flood or you have a natural disaster, you have macroeconomic shocks like currency devaluation. And this can really get you down, because it also sometimes it feels like the work you've done, there's almost a reversal of all of those positive effects when an event like this hits. But that just inspires us to do more. Because when we look at these women, and I've met some incredible clients along the way, one recently last month when I was in Malawi in the southern province, Mary is her name. Her entire livelihood, her house, everything had collapsed when Cyclone Freddy hit. But here she is today. She's repaid. She's managed to repay the loan, microloan. She's developed an alternative livelihood, and she's able to support her family and others in the community. And she just looks back and says, these things happen, but we have to move on. And that spirit is really, really what inspires me to do what I do. Because even though we're facing all of these challenges, when I look at somebody like Mary, I draw inspiration from that. And I say, it's really empowering. And it's empowering not just for me, but for everybody who works at Microloan. It really gives us that additional push to keep going. So there are a lot of, we're very fortunate to have many such examples of inspiring women that we've worked with. I mean, the video that you referred to, perhaps it's the same woman, Mrs. Mokonde. She joined Microloan 12 years ago, and she had a small stall selling rice and groundnuts. She took out a loan for $22 equivalent, or £22. So it's $25. And over time, she was able to generate profits from the business. She reinvested that profits to then get a proper stall. And now today, she owns a mill and she employs other men in the community. I mean, that's an amazing story. And that is the kind of change we want to create on a daily basis. And sometimes you don't see that, but you look back and take stock of what's been achieved in even the last 5, 10 years. You do see these inspirational stories, and you say, actually, that's what this organization is all about. And it's about creating those role models.
You're so right, and part of what I always find so challenging yet so impactful is, here I am in America and you're in London, and we have different lifestyles, and to be able to get others around us to understand how incredibly impactful just $25 is. That story right there of just $25 has now completely shifted that individual's future, as well as, like you say, her family, her friends, her surrounding community. And I just think that is so, so powerful. And thank you for that. I'm curious, have you always been involved in charitable organizations, or was it something new that happened during that shift for you?
They've not all been charitable organizations. Some of them have been, as more of an investment model. But Microloan Foundation is perhaps my first full charity experience. Having said that, while we work as a charity here, in these countries we also operate as companies. What that really means is we want to ensure that we were able to cover our costs, but anything that's excess that we generate is redeployed in the business so that we can serve more women. So that's the principle behind it. So it's been a mixed bag for me, but I think all in the last 12 years, it's been pretty much focused on microfinance.
Do you have a message that you think is important to share with women looking to get involved in supporting foundations like yours?
I think it's really important for women to support women in general. I think there's real power behind that for various reasons. I mean, top one being it's a sense of solidarity. Women around the world face discrimination. There's a gender inequality that exists even in developed countries like us, like ours, when it comes to pay gaps and the roles and responsibilities of women within the household, etc. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it's more stark in sub-Saharan Africa, and especially in the countries we work in. Gender inequality is extremely high. So it's really important for women like that, for living in those conditions, living with statistics as high as that in sub-Saharan Africa, to look up to role models, to say what is possible, and it's all the more important for women in leadership positions in the Western world to be able to support that, so they can see that this is what is possible. Anything is possible for them, and the more examples we share, the better, because it's really truly powerful when it's visible like that. So I would say, I'm not saying that men shouldn't support our cause, but I think it's more important that women get behind it to really demonstrate what is possible. And also, like I said, it also brings about a relatability factor, because when you share experiences, there are some things that are common between a woman in Malawi, in a village in Malawi, and a woman living in the UK or in the US. And I think that relatability factor is really, really important when engaging with these women as well. So I would say more the better.
Completely agree. With a focus of uplifting women, past and present, is there a woman or a group that you'd like to highlight or give a shout out to? It doesn't have to be Microloan. It can be everybody, anybody.
Oh, I think I'm very, very fortunate to have many inspiring women in my life, starting with my own family. I think my grandmother is one of the most amazing women who has inspired me. For her, she grew up in a generation where perhaps her parents didn't prioritize her own education. The male child was given preference, etc. But she ensured that that didn't happen to her own children. So she put that very much at the heart of, when she was raising her children. She had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, my mom included. My mom wanted to be a doctor, and she wholeheartedly backed her. And they were living in times when that was not always possible. So I think she was a little bit of a outlier for her generation, and she always inspired us to follow our dreams from a very young age. And that sort of flowed through, from my grandmother to my mum, and now to me. My mum is still, at the age of 66. She started her own company, that in preventative health. She's really, truly a trailblazer. And she so I think the sky's the limit with them, and that's what they've inculcated in me, and I'd like to live by that. And I mean, I gave a shout out to two of these women in Malawi. I mean, Mrs. Makonde in particular. I think she's been an amazing client of ours, and we use her example time and again because she perfectly exemplifies what we'd like to see with our women clients. What is possible. Start off with a $25 loan, but then you can go and run your own business and employ even men in your community. And that's shifting gender dynamics quite considerably by leaps and bounds within a relatively short period of time, 10, 12 years. That's truly inspirational. So those are really role models that we should highlight, look up to. So those are people I can give a shout out to.
That's fantastic. And we'll be sure to give a shout out beyond this to ensure that people can go see her story, which I found so inspiring. So thank you for that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today in honor of the day or the month?
I think it's really important that we celebrate this month and the day because, like I said, it's important to take stock of what's been achieved, but also use examples from the past to inspire us from what is possible in the future. And we still have some way to go, when it comes to women's equality and gender equality, and all of that. But I think these inspirational stories should really charge us up to take on the challenge and achieve more. So I think when we look at organizations such as ourselves, I really believe in the power of collaboration and partnerships. So I would say others working in the field, others doing similar kind of work. I mean, I would give a shout out and say, let's try and work together. We can achieve the same goal, but much faster and more effectively if we partner in the right way, and we can achieve the same goals. So I would say collaboration is really, really the need of the hour. So we need to be able to leverage off each other's strengths, and I would just like to end on that because I think that's really a powerful way to achieve this in a more efficient way.
Medha, I am so thrilled with everything that you said, and I too really take a tremendous amount of responsibility to ensure that we are building these communities of women who connect with each other, support each other, inspire each other. And I just want to thank you so much because you, to me, are incredibly inspiring. The work that you're doing and the change that you're making. You are a change maker, and the reality is the change that you are making to so many lives is truly inspirational. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.